name is Gurpreet Dillon, and I'm a professor of information systems at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia. My apologies for not being there in South Africa in person to make this presentation. A range of issues complicated the trip, which had to be cancelled at the last minute. What I'm going to do over the next 15-20 minutes, and thanks to Eva for agreeing to run this presentation on our behalf, is to take you through some major tenets of what we call a holistic approach for enriching information security analysis and security policy formulation. We believe that this is an interesting way to conceptualize and think about information security in organizations. The need for holistic approaches cannot be underestimated. And for a moment, before we delve into the paper, I would like to share with you a clip from the Vice President of Global Security for Research in Motion, who contextualizes the importance of holistic information security.
Hey Kevin, my name is Scott Totsky. I'm the Vice President of BlackBerry Security. My role at RIM is to cover all aspects of security, from the time somebody has an idea on the back of a napkin through the design, development, manufacturing process, the release process, right through the end of life of the product. So we take this holistic view of security that really encompasses all aspects of everything we do at RIM. And by everything, I mean we get into board design, how we handle the hardware when we do the manufacturing, the tools we build to build the devices, as well as selecting manufacturing sites, because the geography and the supply chain can have an impact on the security of the product. So it really is a holistic view that is end-to-end for all aspects of security, and we have to sign off at every step of the way before a product goes out the door.
In order for good information security, a large number of social and technical issues need to be considered. Various researchers have highlighted the importance of confidentiality, integrity of data, access control, availability of data, and physical security. In recent years, the importance of responsibility structures has also been established. Others have talked about the importance of leadership and a clearer designation of roles and responsibilities for end users. In my earlier work, I have also highlighted the importance of security objectives. Based on extensive research, I proposed 9 fundamental and 16 means objectives. Some of these objectives that were identified included maintaining an ethical environment, maximizing organizational identity, privacy, maintaining the integrity of business processes, and developing sound management development practices. While we have been working towards establishing
Thank you.
And designing secure information systems and to create sound organizational security policies, we clearly need a balance between the two perspectives. However, inherent in all this is the complexity, and increased complexity increases the risks as well. The last thing we need is clearly an overcomplicated piecemeal solution. Our focus needs to be on developing holistic models and frameworks that merge the roles of not only the security practitioners among themselves, but also with those of the management executives. Responding to such like calls in the literature, we set out to define a rather holistic general framework for conceiving information security. In this work, we use the theory of science, semiotics, to offer an approach for researching and analyzing deep-rooted systems of meanings that lie beneath organizational cultures. Semiotics provides a theoretical tool to analyze both soft areas like interface design and user-friendliness, along with investigating the technical construction of computer systems. An introduction to this work began way back in 1997, where we started looking at semiotics as a means to study computer-based information systems. And in this particular work, we used the approach to analyze a case situation in a hotel and the use of computer-based systems and how a range of social issues come together with the technical issues and the flaws in one or the other impact the overall security of the enterprise.
Semiotics, the study of signs. This science was proposed in the early 1900s by Swiss linguist Ferdinand de Saussure and the American pragmatist Charles Sanders Peirce. Saussure argued that there was no inherent or necessary relationship between that which carries the meaning, the signifier, usually the word or symbol, and the actual meaning which is carried, the signified. For example, the word car is not actually car. The meaning of car could be carried by any random string of letters. It just so happens that, in English, that the meaning is carried by the letter C-A-R. Peirce's ideas about semiotics distinguished between three types of signs: icon, index, and symbol. Whether a sign belongs in one category or another is dependent upon the nature of its relationship between the sign itself, which he called the referent, and the actual meaning. An icon is a sign that stands for an object by resembling it. Included in this category of signs are obvious examples like pictures, maps, and diagrams, and some not so obvious ones like algebraic expressions and metaphors. The essential aspect of the relation of an icon to its object is one of similarity. Indexes refer to their objects, not by virtue of any similarity relation, but rather via an actual causal link between the sign and its object. Smoke is an index of fire. A mark on a fever thermometer is an index of body temperature, and so forth. The relation between the sign and its object is actual in that the sign and object have something in common. That is, the object really affects the sign. Finally, symbols refer to their objects by virtue of law, rule, or convention. Words, propositions, and texts are obvious examples in that no similarity or causal link is suggested in the relation between, for example, the word horse and the object it refers. If symbols need bear no similarity or causal link to their object, then signs can be considered by the sign user in unlimited ways, independent of any physical relationship to the sign user. This point is of crucial importance and, in fact, lays the foundation for semiotic view of cognition in humans.
In 1971, Roland Stamper presented a reconceptualization of semiotics in terms of 6 layers. He argued that by breaking down information flow into small units, that is the signs, semioticians are better able to interpret the real meaning that lies beneath various forms of communication, thus providing a basis for discovering the deep-rooted issues that pertain to various phenomena. The semiotic ladder, an analytical tool that was first introduced in the 1970s, represents that signs can be studied using 6 different layers of abstraction. These 6 layers can further be classified into human and technical level issues. Besides Roland Stamper, the semiotics of information was also conceptualized by other scholars, particularly Jonathan Liebenow and Jim Backhouse in their 1990 book, Understanding Information. The human levels, as conceptualized by these scholars, consist of the social, pragmatic, and semantic layers, and the technical level consists of syntactic, empiric, and physical. Let Let me explain the various semiotic layers in a little more detail. The physical layer lies at the bottom of the ladder. Analysis at this layer is mainly concerned with modeling the properties of information as input to and output from any physical component of an information system. Thus, hardware issues typically map to the physical layer. At the physical layer, the term information is generally defined as a collection of tokens that have both dynamic and static properties. A dynamic token is referred to as a signal, and a static token is referred to as a mark. In the context of information system security, the physical layer analysis requires that the appropriate hardware be determined to provide both proper information and physical security of assets. The empirical layer views information in terms of its availability and usability. It is mainly concerned with the properties of dealing with the transmission of tokens across channels of communication. In the context of information security, empiric layer analysis requires that appropriate telecommunication equipment and network strategies be determined to properly handle the security needs of an organization. The syntactic layer, on the other hand, is not concerned with any empirical or statistical properties of information. Rather, the syntactic layer is concerned with the form and shape of this information. This is to say that it is mainly concerned with the structure and form of tokens. This structure and form is expressed as syntax and requires generally agreed upon rules and formulations for consistency. In the context of information security, syntactic layer analysis requires that the appropriate software be determined that allows for proper authentication techniques, intrusion detection, vigilance, and the maintenance of consistent and available data. The semantic layer is mainly concerned with meanings and is not concerned with what language is used, how the message is encoded, or what medium any message is transmitted on. The semantic layer analysis requires various concepts such as propositions, validity, truth, significance, and denotations to uncover a rich understanding of meaning of all concern. In the context of information security, semantic layer analysis requires that meanings and consequences of various security design issues are examined properly. This type of analysis helps understand issues such as consequences of misinterpretation of data or the misapplication of rules. The pragmatic layer, on the other hand, considers that meanings do not provide accurate or intended upon actions or reactions when taken out of a context. At the pragmatic layer, communication is studied intensively and is considered to be successful when a meaningful utterance is passed by a sender with a certain intention and is interpreted by the receiver of this utterance with the same intention. As a result, pragmatic analysis tends to deal with conversations, negotiations, and intentions of the social aspect of an information system. In the context of information security, pragmatic layer analysis reveals the need for considering the types of communications and negotiations required within the various levels of an organization to implement various security design issues. At this layer of analysis, education, training, awareness, and compliance issues are considered. The social layer analysis deals with the consequences or outcomes of pragmatic communication. That is to say, when a meaningful utterance has occurred, the social layer would be useful to identify the norms that would be changed, altered, or affected in some way. In the context of information security, analysis at this level requires the mission of the business be articulated and aligned with viable security strategy. In our study, we use this framework to undertake an empirical work at a hotel where there were a number of issues case study is being referred to as the Tower. It is a major hotel and a casino property with 6 restaurants, 4 lounges, a pool, and a unique set of tourist attractions. Security for the Tower is divided into 2 departments, gaming surveillance and general physical security. Gaming surveillance is responsible for the observation of all gaming and finance operations in the casino. Security is responsible for the protection of employees, guests, and the assets of the corporation. Both gaming surveillance and security are run by directors who report to the corporate CFO. A separate IT department with several employees and a manager is responsible for handling the technical requirements for ensuring information security. Over the years, the ego and personality clashes created a distinct animosity between the 2 department managers. The IT manager had, on numerous occasions, stated that he felt that the manager of security was inefficient and that the 2 different departments were not needed. The manager of security, on the other hand, felt that IT had interfered with operations and confidentiality of security operations and investigations. These continued clashes served to interfere with the daily operations of staff. In addition to slow operations as a result of inefficient servers, on more than one instances it was alleged that information in sensitive investigations was leaked to public or opposing lawyers and attorneys. While none of these allegations could be proved, security officers often felt unnerved when working on some kind of a report because they felt that IT personnel were taking control of their computers. When we undertook a semiotic analysis of the Tower case study, a number of interesting issues emerged. At a high level, it became very obvious that ego and personality clashes that affected the security operation had a big impact on how security was being conceptualized at different rungs of the organization. It was also very clear that the security department and the information technology departments had different conceptual models as to how security should be managed, and this led to a significant difference between the mindset of these 2 entities. Finally, security solutions that were offered to the organizations did not really match up to the needs that they had. There were also issues related with training of the users. They were asking untrained users to really undertake data entry. There were errors that were creeping into the systems as a result. There was procrastination and misinterpretation of rules all over in the organization, which allowed for security implementation to fall significantly behind and eventually fail. Unauthorized technicians were accessing sensitive files all the time. The IT director was involved in purchasing information technology solutions which were based on incomplete information, thus resulting in leaks of information to the public and opposing lawyers for the labor unions and other stakeholders in the organization. There were inadequate reports of proper security analysis. It was messy all over the place. The servers were very slow and outdated, had not been patched. There was inadequate infrastructure. Generally, people were very unhappy over there, especially those who were working in the concerned departments. Hardware had not been updated for a fair amount of time, and there were issues with the handling data storage and the requirements thereof. Inadequate storage of reports was obviously there, which was leading to release of felons, and the high rollers were not being taken care of adequately. Generally, there was a loss of data in significant parts of the organization. So clearly, the semiotic analysis helped us understand issues at a range of levels, both at a social, pragmatic, semantic, and how they were impacting the rule structures, the redundancies and the efficiencies, and the physical domain as well, to an extent. Important question that arises is, what does the tower case tell us? An analysis of the situation suggests that there was absolute misalignment of interests between different stakeholders. And as a result, the mission of the business and what the security solutions were trying to achieve were misaligned. Because they were misaligned, there was absolutely no emphasis on education, training, etc. of the users. And because of that, nobody understood very clearly what their responsibilities were, what they were accountable for, or who should be blamed when things went wrong, or where the accountabilities resided. So as a result, the design of the organization with respect to security was all messed up. The organization was not really engaged in any kind of security analysis. The reviews were not being conducted in a timely manner. The audits were inadequate at best. Nobody was proactively looking at the networks, the computer networks that existed in the company, and where enhancements should and could have been made. Anything that was being done was essentially piecemeal in a reactive manner. And because of that, there was no policy in terms of how and when new hardware should be purchased or upgraded. There were issues, obviously, with respect to data storage. So there's a range of issues which span all the way from the social world to the empiric world, particularly with respect to misinterpretation of data and misapplication of rules and allocation of. Our analysis of information security issues using a semiotics-based framework helps in spotting hotspots. These hotspots can then be used as a basis for moving up and down the ladder to conduct a deeper and a more enriched analysis. In our case, for example, a lack of roles and responsibilities that led to a culture of gaining access without authority at the tower afforded an environment where self-imposed rules for software patches and upgrades became prevalent. This in turn resulted in an environment of inefficient operations and one where physical devices were not properly secured. We also illustrated in our case that issues generated via one tower security problem can lead to substantial implications for an enriched security policy. The tower's lack of ability to meet security requirements provides insights for an alignment strategy of sorts. Their cultural problems provide insight for developing an awareness strategy. A lack of roles and responsibilities reduces the need for developing a system for creating and enforcing responsibility structures. Self-imposed rules provide insight for properly creating audit reviews and software strategies. The inefficient operation of the tower servers provides insight for an enriched network strategy. And finally, the lack of a proper locking technique for physical devices provides insight for an enriched hardware strategy. So you see, we move up and down the semiotic ladder to interpret how one aspect has implications on various other levels of the ladder. In a final synthesis, information security clearly is becoming a multidisciplinary and a multidimensional discipline where both social and technical considerations must be considered in a coherent manner. And hence, there's a need for creating holistic models of this sort for conceptualizing information security. And this particular emphasis cannot be underestimated, and there is a pressing need to undertake more research in this particular field. Thank you, and enjoy South Africa.